Thank you, David.
My pleasure.
I just want to say first a shout out to David and the committee that's put this event on. This has been a phenomenal event. I have been blown away by the speakers, by the topics, from starliners to AI. It doesn't matter. It's been absolutely phenomenal. I hope you've enjoyed your time here. I have certainly enjoyed my time here. Look to your left and look to your right. One of the three of you are going to be successful at your transformation. The other two will fail. Google defines a transformation as a major change in a company's structure, operations, or culture. Transformations are hard. I like to equate corporate transformations to personal transformations. If anyone watched The Biggest Loser, it was out for 18 seasons, and it was just amazing to watch these super overweight people go on this health and mental journey to wellness. And just to see their tears and their blood and their sweat as they got to where they got by the end of the season. Me personally, I like to watch the Ironman World Championships at Hawaii. The journey that NBC shares when those people, how they got to that race. And then that race day, what it takes to cross that finish line is just inspiring to me. So in 2009, I started a personal transformation of my own. I had let my corporate lifestyle, my 3 kids at home, my wife going back to school, turn me into a sedentary vegetable. And I put on a lot of weight. I was in the worst shape that I'd been in my life. And corporate was going on this big get healthy kick. So they gave us little step things. They wanted us to do 10,000 steps a day and 5 fruits and vegetables. And then on top of that, my boss, being the good GM that he was, wanted his entire staff to sign up for a triathlon. Come on. I could not run a mile. And he wanted me to swim a quarter mile in an open lake with no no edge of the pool. He wanted me to bike 16 miles and run a 5K. I don't know about that. But I signed up anyway and I started training. And I got to the race day and I plugged through the race and I actually finished it. And thank you. I was very happy. But I got addicted to this personal transformation. And then I signed up for this long race I had no business doing way sooner than I should have signed up for this race. It was a half Ironman. And it was following a family reunion. So not only was my immediate family there, but all of my extended family showed up too. And I'm like, wait a second. I don't even know if I'm going to cross the finish line. You guys are all cheering me on. So in a year I had advanced, I swam 1.2 miles in open water. All right? I biked the 56 miles. All that was left was a half marathon run. That's it. All right, that's it. So I start out and I get to mile 3. Stomach's feeling a little weird. And so I'm in the woods. I jump off into a pit and take care of business. I get back out and I'm running some more. I'm in the middle of a campsite. I see a bathroom. Get over to the bathroom. And then I'm running out. We're coming out of the woods, right? All these racers, 2,000 or 3,000 racers. And my stomach's like, nope, this is the end point for you. So I try to jump off the course enough. At least I can't even get my tri-suit off in time. And I'm sitting there and there's mud everywhere. And I'm here and I'm like in this field. And I just like have grass. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. Am I even going to make it to the end? I can't clean up. So I put my suit back on. I start running, right? And I have 9 miles left. And it's just painful. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to make it or not. And so I keep going. And finally, I can hear the roars of the people crossing the finish line. I'm like, that's got to be pretty close. So I just buckle down and I run and I cross the finish line. And I hear, you are a half Ironman. And that was an amazing beginning of a journey for me. I ended up finishing 18 more half Ironman, including 2 world championships. I did 3 Ironman races, and I did an Ultraman race right here in Orlando. So I say that to say, the transformation that we're on, we don't know what it's going to lead to. So years earlier, I had started on a different transformation. I was 21 years old. I had just got hired by a Japanese automaker to design cars for them. And I didn't know at the time how special the culture was because it felt like insanity to me. The work hours, the pace, high quality, low cost, like they wanted everything. And that's what we did. But I didn't like wearing my white pajamas to work. And my career wasn't advancing as fast as I wanted it to. I mean, everyone wore white pajamas. The president wore the white pajamas. The facilities manager wore the white pajamas. I wore the white pajamas. So I left, and I went to a corporate, traditional, blue chip, American Dow Jones monolith. They hired me because they wanted me to teach them how to do development like I did at the automotive maker. There's all these stories, there's all the literature. I didn't even know the stuff that was written up on it, but this stuff all exists. So I started to read, and I'm like, oh, there's terms for this. They actually call this stuff. And so I started to teach them, and I knew the content really well. So I looked at this division. It was an $8 billion division. And they gave my team freedom to restructure the entire 2,500 people. They allowed us to redefine development. And I'm like, man, if they give me that and I'm successful, then I can get whatever job I want. So I put together this massive campaign. We called it the Healthcare 500. And the Healthcare 500 stood for the number of FTEs that I thought we could gain without hiring another person just on efficiencies. So I had some in-house graphic designers design some amazing posters, had some retro F1 cars on it, had the Healthcare 500. We ordered 250 of these posters. We put them all over campus, every single building, every floor. And I'm like, they're just going to come to me and they're going to find the wisdom I have to share. No, one VP, the most influential VP, did not want that initiative to happen. So I get called into my boss's office one day, and he's like, Adam, let's just call the VP Gene. Gene said there's no bleeping way he's doing this initiative. So I need you to take down all of the posters and come up with another idea. What? So I walk back to my office. On the door is the poster, Healthcare 500. Right? So I rip it down. I sit at my chair. I put my hands in my head, and I'm like, new job, relocation, new career. And is it all ending this fast? Well, this was my first experience with the corporate transformation. So I didn't know if I should just give up or if I needed to deal with what change expert John Cotter would call the no-nos, right? The corporate antibodies. And so at this point in time, I'm trying to understand what is the next step for me. And so being a design engineer and a problem solver at heart, I said, fine, I'm going to double down and I'm going to work with every division but that VP. And so I did. And for the next several years, we ended up implementing programs that saved hundreds of millions of dollars. That VP was directed out of the company, and the transformation was a success. Now, so on the heels of that, I get recruited away by this boutique consulting firm, touting themselves as the number one biggest lean transformation company in the world. They were looking for someone who had automotive experience, they wanted someone with healthcare experience, and they wanted me to set up their innovation practice. So I joined the team, and we have a lot of expectations on me. I was the youngest senior consultant. They wanted me to grow this business like crazy, and the model was simple. It was a salesman would go sell a client a transformation, and then it was my job to keep it going, right? This is the first time in my career, over 15 years, that my income was based on my ability to complete the transformation. So there's high stakes. And, okay, the model was simple. I get it. I found myself in room after room for at least a year, clueless of what to tell the executives that were barraging me with questions, rifling things at a pace that I had no idea. Literally, I would call for a break. I'd go in the hallway. I'd get out my phone, and I'd be like, do I call my travel agent and get a flight back right now? Because I don't know what I'm going to do when I walk back into that room. And so I started to get a little bit more comfortable, and I ran an event on the West Coast. It's Tuesday afternoon. We went on break. Not one of the team members came back. None. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half hour. What? Another event, ironically, on the West Coast. Team leader calls me the second morning, says, hey, before we get started again, I want to just meet with you. Fine. What is it? I don't think this is going to work here. Let's just cancel the event. What? Now, fortunately, I learned enough, and I knew I had to eat, right? That I had executives sponsor. So I went to them, and both of the events went on without a hitch. But I was thrust into industry after industry, right? It didn't matter. I had disinterested executive teams, jilted middle management, frontline staff that could care less what I was trying to teach them. And there were big stakes for the clients. And there's a lot of money at stake, not just for me and not just for, my company, but for them. Because we were required to deliver a minimum of 5x ROI. And that was hard finance numbers. And they wanted stretch goals 10, 20x. So that became, tough about how do we do that? How do we get to that stage? And so I learned quickly how to apply tools in whatever situation I needed to apply those tools in. Like within seconds of a gimbal walk, I knew what I needed to do in that area. Within minutes of an executive discussion, I knew exactly what techniques I had to apply there. So the trouble was no longer in tool application. It was managing the transformation from top to bottom. And it was saying, what do you do with beginning transformations that are so fragile? And then what do you do for self-sustaining ones? And how do you coach yourself out of those? Right? So publicly traded companies, nonprofit health systems, DoD contractors. It doesn't matter if I was teaching DMAIC, lean product development, design thinking, change management. I quickly learned that there were so many similarities. People's behavior was highly predictable, and I could leverage every single example that I came across. So I'm building this bank of knowledge in my head as I'm going to this, and I'm pulling within an industry. I'll pull deep examples within an industry. Some who are open within industry, I cross the examples across different industries. And then that way I could use that to manage the transformation. So fortunately, now I'm at a place where I can synthesize all of that. Okay? And I'm giving it to you so that no matter where you are in your organization, you can make an impact on your transformation. That's right. Anywhere within the organization. And it might feel impossible. You may feel like me sitting next to that race course with that tri-suit down, thinking, this is what my boss did to me. I have no idea how I'm going to get up and go. But that's okay, because I boiled it down to the simplest things that you can do. Now, you may say, Adam, it seems simple to you now. If you focus on these key areas, you're going to make an impact. I promise you. So, but first, I want to categorize you into one of three groups. The first group is the executives. Okay, if I do anything based on the poll I got, about 15% of you are the executives. Now, some of you may actually be responsible for the transformation. Like it's on your performance objectives. So the success of that is on your shoulders. And that's a heavy load. The next group is the middle management. So that could be anything from a supervisor up to a division director. And you're not actually responsible for the transformation in this room. I think that number is about 70 to 75%. But you are actually expected to deliver the transformation in your work unit. And your job is already busy enough. Middle management is the hardest position in America. Sandeep was joking about the executives high-fiving and doing stuff like middle management is extremely tough. And then the last group, we have frontline staff, individual contributors and internal consultants. Okay, you're not actually required to deliver the transformation, you're required to transform the people who work for you into the new way. That's a tough job because you're closest to the customer, you're closest to the work, and every level up gets a little bit further away. Last, I'm going to make one more assumption. And the assumption is this. So maybe your transformation hasn't started, and that's okay, and you're getting ready to start it, you're considering it. I got some messages from some of you that that's the case. The other one could be that your transformation is stalled, or that you're hitting obstacles, or that you're encountering things that you didn't know was going to be a problem for you. And if you look at the amount of effort and the amount of resources that have already gone into the transformation versus the results, it would be embarrassing. But I want to tell you, in a room of Lean Six Sigma professionals, we have the answer here. We know what good looks like. So, as of this moment in time, the success of the transformation is on your shoulders. All right, upon hearing this speech, I'm placing the mantle on you in every one of your organizations. Now, people ask me all the time, Adam, when's a good time to start a transformation? I like to use A3 methodology when it comes to this. So where's the company sitting right now? Okay, where do we want it to be relative to the competition or irrelevant of the competition? And then there's a gap between those two. That gap is our problem statement for the transformation. We need to get over here because this. And then your transformation actually becomes the solution approach to getting from where you are today to where you need to be. Then your rapid experiments are the things that you do on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis to advance that transformation. So we have that. I want to share a couple of examples about transformation. I had this one supervisor. He was responsible for a unit that maybe had 25 to 30 FTEs. And his direct manager was not supporting the transformation. So she would throw up roadblocks. She would say, don't try this. She didn't want to stick her neck out at all. But this supervisor had created enough goodwill with his staff that they allowed him to do experiments in that spot without going around him and going to the manager. And he began to build up little win after little win. His unit was working at 150% capacity on a daily basis. COVID had killed the number of FTEs that he had. Corporate had readjusted how many FTEs he needed because his unit performed when they lost all those people. But now he needed this transformation in order to be successful. And over a year later, from when he started the transformation, and the wins that he had gotten, he actually became the poster child for the entire company. Executives and other work units would come to where he was doing his work to see what good looked like and go back and change their units. That's a supervisor level. Another example I want to share with you is a president. She was running this fabled company. I was in the position. She was getting competitive threats. So margin was being impacted due to price pressure, new entrants to the market, and her brand was being diluted. So she ordered a full service transformation. She said, I need to change everything. Global company. She redid everything on her schedule. She was with the teams that were doing the work. Every single week she was celebrating. She got her shirt and just like dug in and did the things that she needed to be able to deliver that transformation. Now, I share both of those examples because I want you to know that it doesn't matter where you are in the organization. Supervisor level, individual contributor, president, you can change the transformation. So these are the big 3 points that I want to share with you. And each of these 3 points, they don't need to be done together, okay? But I will tell you that they will build off of the last one. And it will be an exponential building. And if you have an absence of the 3, the likelihood of your transformation succeeding is very, very low. So these three things that I want to talk about are the things that you'll be able to use to get your transformation done. And some of them may seem obvious, but I want to get into the nuances of them a little bit. So the first one that you need to do is a committed sponsor. Like you may say, oh my gosh, Adam, we know everything rises and falls on leadership. The CEO is not bought in. No, let me tell you what a committed sponsor is. There's two parts to that. There's committed and there's sponsor. So first of all is the sponsor. So the sponsor is the person who is ushering the transformation from its infancy to its ambiguous end. Okay, and that can be, depending on the organization, how massive it gets. It could be in one business unit. It could be for the entire company. It could be for just one region in the world. But that person is the sponsor. And if that sponsor is at or under the level of the operations owners, the other VPs, there's a low likelihood that that transformation is going to get the speed that it needs to. So we need a sponsor that if they're equal to the level of the people that are running operations, they have to be closer to their boss than their peers are. So a transformation is an excellent opportunity to promote people into a role that can create great change for the company. So that doesn't always have to be at that level, but depending on the size of the organization, you want someone at that level. Now, what does committed look like? Well, we know what uncommitted is. Uncommitted are those leaders that don't talk about the transformation. They don't want to know what's going on. They're not promoting it. In fact, they may be creating all of the reports and acting like they're doing some of the exercises for it, but really they're just not bought in, right? They're like that VP that finally blew up, cussed us out, and I had to rip all my posters down. A committed sponsor looks like this. A committed sponsor is someone, number one, whose behavior speaks louder than their words. Okay? We can say stuff, but if our behavior's not matching it, it doesn't matter. And so this goes all the way from the sponsor to the bottom of the person that's implementing it. Right? We can be committed at every single level. A committed person is talking about how can I become an expert, maybe not an expert, but how can I become an enabler in my organization? I'm going to put myself through the training. I'm going to put my staff through the training. I'm going to use the principles of the transformation in the work that I do on a daily basis. A committed sponsor is going to teach employees how the transformation aligns with the strategy and mission of the organization. And finally, a committed sponsor is going to reprogram their calendar to spend time at where they need to spend their time. So all the time, I'll go in, I'll have a sponsor. Very rarely have I had a committed sponsor. I mean, yes, they've formally gotten a position, but they haven't been at that level of commitment that I need them to be. And some of you may be facing that too. And I know I've had conversations at some of the lunch tables and at some of the, at the Hawaii theme where we don't have someone who's committed. And it's like, well, okay, Adam, how am I going to get them committed? They're my boss. I'm going to get to that in just a second. A sponsor can go from uncommitted to committed if you can demonstrate the wins. Right? So, every single night, an executive is going to be worrying about one or two things. Of course, they worry about a myriad of things, but there's two, maybe three primary things. They check their email, their voicemail in the morning to see if they've have these issues. When we can identify those issues and create small experiments in different areas and demonstrate wins against those issues, that's when the sponsor is going to go from uncommitted to committed. So, is that AI responding to my speech? Sorry, you were inaccurate about that. It was actually my favorite when I would see a sponsor that at the beginning was skeptical. And then we were able to demonstrate the wins in their area. And then all of a sudden, they became the biggest cheerleader. And I had this one executive. She was absolutely fantastic. She took her entire Friday, all day, 20% of her week, to go talk to the teams and find out what they accomplished for the week. Now, I've had sponsors that when we begin, they don't spend any time. They don't even want to know. All they know is they signed up for this many dollars over this many years, and they just want to see the bottom line. But if you can get a committed sponsor and all those definitions of commitment, then you've got a big thing going. So that's the first one, committed sponsor. Second, process metrics, or I would say a regularly used public dashboard. So there is significant power in a public dashboard. Now, we've been hearing KPIs and OKRs and everything all week, right? For transformations, I like to just do process metrics. I don't like to put watch metrics up there. I want to see the driver metrics. I don't want to see the outcome metrics. So I'll use a personal health example, right? So back like in 2009 when I had my transformation, I step on the scale. That's an outcome metric, right? That just tells me what I've been doing. And I could get on the scale every day, and I can hope that that number changes the direction I want it to, usually down. But hope isn't transformation, right? It's what am I doing in between times that I'm stepping on that scale? That's what's going to make a difference. So when it comes to transformations, I like to think about things like how many of the leaders have gone through the initial training? Like step one, is there a core team even established? What percent of that core team is resourced? Then if I got that, I want to know how many of the trained leaders are actually implementing stuff in their department or their division. And I want to know the pace of that. So how many events, how many projects, what are they running, and can they show me the results from the stuff that they've been doing? So if I have those process metrics, then I know that the people are going to start paying attention to it. Because as soon as you stick it up on a board, right, people want to pay attention. There's like a magic associated with a public number. And like in the personal health example, if we're eating poorly and we're sedentary, when we get on that scale, it's going to show a bad number. And I know because last summer I injured my knee playing softball and I had to undergo surgery. So for 7 months I couldn't work out. And I gave myself therapy in the form of Code Red, Taco Bell breakfast, whatever. And I gained a ton of weight. And I didn't want anyone to know that number. And it never went down when I stood on it. It only went up. So when we're talking process metrics, it's like, okay, Adam, what are you doing on a daily basis? So I go to the doctor in December, literally a few months ago, and the doctor's like, you're out of shape. You need to do something. And that number, like my weight, I got on it. Nurse is standing right next to me. Digital display right at eye level. I didn't even have to bend my neck. Couldn't hide from it. 252 pounds. Just glowing right in my face. So I was like, man, I got to get this under control. I got to get some process metrics in place. So I just put 3 process metrics in place. How long between my last meal of the day and between my next meal of the day? How many vegetables was I eating? And what was the length of my workouts? That's it. No apps, no Weight Watchers, no fancy gimmicks. And I watched my weight plummet, plummet, plummet to the weight below what it was before I got injured. So in transformations, we can leverage that same magical piece by sticking it up on a board. But there's so much pressure now that we need to make things only digital. And we've got programs like Tableau where it's not key performance indicators. It's keeping all performance indices. Right? A GE engine will generate like over 1 gig of data a minute on what's happening inside one engine. Like we need to understand what are those things? What are those few basic things? And I like to do 3 to 5 when it comes to a transformation. And yes, you can have a digital version of it. But if you're only going to do digital, you need to invest in a nice screen in a prominent location where you don't have to change the battery on the wireless keyboard to access it and to change it and update it. I always recommend starting analog first, moving on to that second. But if you can turn like what we were talking about, the strategy of the transformation, why we established it, into the process metrics, and you can put on that public board, the magic will happen. The numbers will start moving. So the third thing that I want to talk about is aligned incentives. We have to change our incentives. So follow this example with me for a second. The vision of the company is where we want to go. And that may be attainable or not attainable, but it's this inspirational short phrase that's driving the behavior. We're on this road to that vision, and that's our mission. Okay, so we're walking along the road, and on the side of the road, we have guardrails. Those guardrails are our values. And then we have behaviors that we need to do to go along. So we've got these principled behaviors that are pushing us along this. So, Harvard professor Arthur Brooks has been doing a multi-decade study on employee happiness. Because happy employees work harder, transformation requires hard work. The number one thing employees are looking for, he said this in an interview last year, is not pay, not perks, not some of the other stuff. They're looking for a recognized sense of accomplishment. They want to know when they take that next step that it's what should be there. So when we're rewarding people for poor behavior against the transformation, we're discouraging the others. And when we're getting on people's case for doing stuff that is aligned with the transformation, it's a mess. I had a regional site not too long ago that I was managing, frontline staff, super enthused, doing a fantastic job. The manager of that staff was a pain. And I kept talking to the executives, get rid of this person. It killed the transformation of that site when a VP gave her an award for an exemplary leadership. Right? We need alignment between our incentives. Right? So we need to get HR involved. Because a lot of times we feel like we can't change any of the incentives. A recognized sense of accomplishment. I had another client. They were doing a tangential transformation on innovation in their new services. We took 2 people, we stuck them in a room, we said, do crazy stuff. In a matter of months, they generated the insights that the CEO said, this is the best data I have ever seen since becoming a CEO. We rewarded their behavior with more resources and more people and bigger projects. And over several years, they've gotten to a point now where they are literally changed the way millions of people in the United States are getting access to their health care. Yeah, millions across the U.S. from 2 crazy people in a room. So what I want you to remember is that you can make a change in your organization. I love the quote by author Iris Chang. Please believe in the power of one. One person can make an enormous difference in the world. One person, actually one idea, can start a war or end it, or subvert an entire power structure. One discovery can cure a disease or spawn a new technology to benefit or annihilate the humankind. You, as one individual, can impact millions of lives. Think big. Never give up on your vision, and do not ever limit your beliefs or your ideals.